Hello crafty friends, and this is Amy Gould here, and I am going to share with you today a new way of adding some stitching to your card creations. I'm starting by using this Udderly Fabulous stamp set from Heffy Doodle, including the coordinating dies, and I'm also going to be using the Heffy Doodle Summer Holiday paper pad. I love this pack, it's got such fun vibrant colours in it. And for my stitching I'm going to be using this Spin embroidery thread. I've also got some Heffy Doodle tools. I'm going to be using this mini die cutting machine. I absolutely love this machine. And I'm going to be also using some of the Heffy memo tape and a few other Heffy Doodle goodies that you'll see as I go along. So I'm going to start off by stamping this little cow onto some alcohol friendly paper. I'm going to stamp her out and then use the coordinating die to cut her out. But first off, I'm just going to colour her in, and I'm going to do some very simple colouring just to give her a little bit of shading, a little bit of something extra. I just want that stitching to be the main focus and the interest in this little cow really. So I'm going to put a plain layer just over these areas that are the patches on her, and oh no, my marker has had an accident and bled. If this happens to you, you can take the caps off both ends, and that helps to slow it down, and I'll go back in later and clean that up a bit. As you can see, I've now got the grey nicely all over my hand, so you've got that to look forward to for the rest of the video. I apologise. All the colours that I'm using here with my Copics I will put in the description down below, so you can find those and have a look. I'll also put more details on the blog post, so if you want to know the measurements for any of the card bits, then that will be on my blog post for you. So I'm just finishing off my colouring in here, and those patches I've just coloured in the solid colour. I'm going to be using my thread to go over all of those areas, so I just wanted to give it a little blank colour underneath it, just so that if there are any gaps it will show the colour rather than just white behind it. I'm just using a blender pen to just take away some of that oopsie at the top there, just to show you that you can save it even if it's a dark colour like that, and that will lighten up as it dries. I'm also going to cut it out, so you'll only see a little edge of that anyway. And so here comes that memo tape that I was talking about. I'm just using a little bit of that to secure my die in place once I've lined it up where I want it. And then I'm going to run it through this Heffy Doodle mini die cut machine. As you can see, my die cutting panels are very well loved, but they still work perfectly through once, and it's cut nice and cleanly. I'm also going to cut a second one of these cows out in the plain, just on the plain paper. You can use scrap paper for this. I just want to double them up so that they're nice and thick, so that when I do the stitching through it, it just holds a little bit firmer and is less likely to break the paper as much. So I'm using my Quickie two-way glue pen to just stick those together so I can get all of the edges and the little bits of her ears and stuff. Now I'm going to go onto the thread. So I've put a foam mat underneath, and I'm just going to cut a bit of thread to the length that I want. These embroidery flosses are all made up of 6 individual threads, and I only want 3 of them for this because I don't want it to be too thick as I'm putting it through my paper. Now these threads also came with this little needle threader, which is brilliant and saves so much time. And now I'm going to start threading. So I'm just going to put holes in from the front so that I can see exactly where I'm putting them. And don't do like me, don't forget that you do that first bit. You want to stop before it comes all the way through the paper. And I just use a little bit of sellotape just to stick that down. The sellotape also again helps to just strengthen that bit of paper, so it doesn't matter if it's a bit big, just as long as it doesn't show out through the front of your image. So again, I'm just going to keep making little holes with my needle and putting my thread through. This doesn't have to be pretty at the back because nobody's going to see it. It's just the front bit that you want to look nice. And I'm trying to follow sort of the lines of where I think her fur or hair will go. I'm just using obviously the lines that have been drawn by the lovely artist, and following through and just carrying on putting all of this together. Now some of these I've put back through the same hole at the top there, and then obviously at a point I've decided I need to move off and make another hole just beside that so that it doesn't get too full and doesn't actually poke all the way through the paper. So I'm just keeping going, just moving my way around her head here. You want to get them close together, but not too close together for your holes, because otherwise they're just going to pull right the way through and make a mess rather than just adding texture. And I'm just going back and filling in. If I keep turning it like this, I can see where I've maybe missed some sections and I can put holes in. Sometimes you'll see I'm having to press a little bit harder to just get through the paper and the layers of paper and the tape, and sometimes obviously the other threads that I've already put through. But it's quite therapeutic doing this, and it feels really nice. It gives it a nice texture once it's done, which is really good. I'm just coming to the end of this little section here, and as you can see I've still got plenty of thread left. So once I'm done here, I'll just move on to the next section. But here, so you can see, it's just added a bit of texture. And then I've moved on to the next area, which is going to be this eye patch here. And when I did this eye patch, I got to the end of it and realised that I've gone over where it actually shows her eye. So I thought I would try and draw back over it. So I tried a couple of different pens. I used a Sharpie white pen, a fine liner one, and I also used a gel pen, a white gel pen, to try and go over and put that line back in. You'll see in just one moment how that went. So the Sharpie here does bleed quite a bit across the fabric. I mean, it could maybe look like eyelashes, and the gel pen didn't really help. So I decided that I'd just colour back over that and just leave it and be happy with it the way it was. And I moved on to the next section of my little cowl, the next spot. So I'm sure you don't need to really see me stitching all of these little areas. So here we go, I jumped to when it was finished. So as you can see, I did a little bit on the end of her tail there as well. And I really think the stitching just adds a nice little texture to it and a nice little something different. So that's all my stitching there on the back. And as you can see, I just finish it off as well by adding another little bit of tape at the end of the thread. I'm going to add on some of these little foam pads. Obviously the back of it is quite bobbly, so this just gives it a little bit of cushioning and will help to even that out a little bit when I put it on my card. And now we're ready to start playing around with the card. So I'm just here looking at little bits of scraps I've got lying around already of this gorgeous Heffy Doodle paper. So I've been left with these little blue strips that I've had for a little while from another project, and I thought it would be a great opportunity to use them. Also, that yellow behind is the banana split paper, also from Heffy Doodle. And then I just cut a section of this pink striped paper because I felt like I wanted to try and tie back in that pink flower in the cow's hair and just give it a little bit more of a pop on the card. So I feel like I'm quite happy with that sort of layout, the way that that is. And now I'm having a little look at the different sentiments that come with this set and deciding which ones I want and which ones might fit on my little square of paper there. And I've decided the Seize the Moment is the one for me. So I'm going to line this up again on my little stamp press here and just stamp this out with, again, Memento ink. And I'm going to do this twice just to make sure it's nice and dark and nice and clear. Then I'm going to bring out another Heffy Doodle fun stencil this time, which is called Green Fields. And this, I am literally, I wish I could tell you the colours that I'm using here, but to be honest with you, I've just literally grabbed my green brush and used the colours that are still left on it. So it's going to be a lot of Twisted Citron and probably some mauve lawn that's mainly made up that colour. But I can't 100% tell you because it's just whatever was left on my brush. I quite like doing that. It can give quite a nice effect. And just to tie in with the stitching, I'm doing lots of little faux stitching around the edge of this frame, and I'll do some more on the rest of the card as well. You can measure these out fully if you want to, but I quite like eyeballing them and giving them that little bit of a hand-drawn look. So now I'm going to put the rest of the card together. So I'm just going to put some glue, and I like using this liquid glue from Collel because it gives me a bit of wiggle time to be able to centre it where I want it before it fully sticks down. I'm just double checking with myself whether I want to put that pink piece on an angle or straight, and I went for straight. And then I'm going to do some more of those faux stitching just around the edges here. Again, just to tie the whole thing together and to bring in a bit more of that stitched element as we've done some stitching on the cow. I think these little touches just add to the card and just finish it off for me. I quite like doing little edges around my cards. I think it just adds that little bit of something else to the make. And again, I'm going to do the same thing just over that little patterned pink piece there as well. I find it easier to do it when you can get to all the edges rather than afterwards when you've put the card all together, because that can get quite awkward trying to draw around other items that are already on your card. So I'd rather, even though some of this is going to be covered up, just draw all of them on now at this stage. So the rest of it is quite simple. Again, I'm just going to use some more of my liquid glue, and I'm just going to line up these stripes across my card, and then I'll trim them all once I get to that point where they're all on and I can trim them all together. And I'll do that with just a pair of scissors. I wanted to mix up the smaller, the thinner and wider strips so that there's no real order to it and it's a bit more higgledy-piggledy across the bottom of the card there. And then to finish it off, I'm just going to add on my little panel here with my sentiment, and then take the back off of all of those foam pads that I put on earlier and attach this cute little cow to the front. So I thought this looked quite cute, and I thought when I was originally doing it that I was going to leave it at that, but I couldn't resist these Tutti Frutti little shaker elements here. I just love the way that these Heffy Doodle mixes have got so many gorgeous colours in them, and they have little gems as well as the sequins. And I couldn't resist using these ones. I thought the greens, pinks and blues would just fit perfectly with what colours I've added in here. So I'm just working out where I'm going to lay them all out now. And then I'm going to come back in with my two-way glue pen again, and I'm going to use my little pick-up tool from Dovecraft to pick up these little gems and sequins, just add a little bit of glue behind them and then stick them down. I've just come back to this little tiny one here because it just didn't look like it was going to be fixed quite well enough for my liking. And there's my card. I hope you like it. I hope it's given you an idea of a bit of something different that you can do with your cards. Let me know what you'd like to add stitching to in the comments. Please like and subscribe if you've enjoyed this. Thank you very much.